Robert Cabral put out a statement earlier this week, and he's talking about the science in dog training doesn't belong. But what science doesn't he want in dog training? There's a reason for all this. I'm getting so tired of the lies and the extortion that these people are doing to earn money. And it's all bloody lies. So, in order to understand what he's getting into, we need to understand objective versus subjective. Okay? Subjective information is based on personal opinions, feelings, and interpretations, while objective information is based on verifiable facts and data. Now, what does that actually mean? We need to use an example. So let's use fear of spiders. Let's take an adult that is afraid of spiders. Even as a child, they were afraid of spiders. Why are they afraid of spiders? Chances are there was a parent that was afraid of spiders and telling them point blank, "Don't go near the spider." Okay, so we have an adult that's afraid of spiders, and every time they see a spider, they go fight and flight. That fight and flight response is an emotional response to something in the environment. That is what a behavior is. That is the definition of a behavior. So if all of a sudden you feel fear, you're going to go into fight and flight mode. Now, objectively, when a dog trainer looks at your behaviors as a result of fear of spiders, they don't even see the spider. They don't care about the spider. They're looking at your behaviors objectively, and they're going to focus on those behaviors, and they're going to focus on shutting down those behaviors. How do we stop these behaviors? The subjective comes in to explain why you're afraid of the spiders in the first place. Objectivity requires no science, it requires no psychology, no nothing. This is the reason why these people cannot define the word behavior, and I'm going to get into that in a few minutes, okay? The definition of behavior is an emotional response to something in the environment, good or bad, okay? If you're afraid, you're going to have a response. If you're scared, if you're mad, you're going to have a response. If you've got a joyful feeling, you're going to have a response. This is all your behaviors. But the thing of it is, dog trainers are sweeping all the subjectivity under the rug because they can't deal with it. They don't want to deal with it. That is the science that is explained by psychology and people like B.F. Skinner. Now, let's get into listening to Robert Cabral to find out what science doesn't belong in dog training. Okay? Now, if you want to see a man that's lying, this is how you tell what Robert Cabral is lying to you. Okay? Have a listen to this video.
There's little, if any, science to this science-based dog training because it rejects a large percentage of the actual scientific knowledge and theories, such as like the effective use of negatives and corrections, or what's called in science punishment.
Punishment. There you go.
Punishment, again, I don't use the word punishment, I use the word correction.
And that's a key factor because once he stated this, I don't know how, this video is a few years old, but once he made that statement that I don't like the word punishment, I like the word correction, now magically the word punishment has disappeared from dog training. Funny, isn't it? Positive reinforcement, purely positive, IGP, balance training, it's all about correcting the dog now. Don't punish the dog, but yet Robert's saying point blank that punishment is correction. They're equivalent. Let's keep going.
Punishment is the scientific term under Skinner.
Under Skinner, B.F. Skinner, Burroughs Frederick Skinner. This is the man that Robert Cabral blames for dog training. Now I'm going to come back to this video in just a minute. Here's the problem. This is the information that Robert Cabral doesn't want you to know. Mary Birch is one of the elite graduates of the American College of Veterinary Behaviors, okay? And she actually penned an essay called A Toast to Most, Konrad Most, okay? And people should sit down and read this entire blog. I'm going to put this blog in the comments section. Because once you read it, you're going to understand how to use Skinner to bring forth Konrad Most, okay? What they're blaming Skinner for is all Konrad Most. And if you scroll down, you'll actually see the entire essay, okay? If you pause it, you can actually go through and read it yourself. And it's quite interesting, because she mentions positive punishment and negative punishment. The problem is, Skinner was dead set against the use of punishment. He openly opposed punishment. Even Ivan Benavilov said this on camera. So what is Robert Cabral getting on with punishment? Now, the whole thing about dog training, from Zach George, positive reinforcement, purely positive, you got IGP, you got balance training, they're all about stopping behaviors. All they're doing is looking at behaviors objectively, and they want to shut down the behaviors, stop the behaviors. That's all you ever hear anymore. But that, according to B.F. Skinner, when you attempt to shut down or stop a behavior, you're trying to remove a behavior from the animal's repertoire, and that by definition is use of punishment. Okay? So go through and read this, and you'll understand where the quadrants came from. The real quadrants of dog training are not positive and negative reinforcement, positive and negative punishment. They are primary and secondary inducements and primary and secondary compulsive inducements. That's the lie that dog trainers are trying to hide. And Robert Cabral knows this. When Robert Cabral talks about discomfort belonging to dog training, that's straight out of Konrad Most book, Training Dogs, written in 1910. Who is Konrad Most but the father of IGP dog training, the father of modern day Schutzhund? Robert Cabral knows this book. When he talks about discomfort in dog training, that's Konrad Most. That's not B.F. Skinner. Okay? Most describe reinforcement, inducement. And he's even listed the page numbers. I urge people to sit down and read Konrad Most Training Dogs. I will put a link to the book in the section down below in the comments section. Once you read the book from Konrad Most Training Dogs, you will understand dog training and how there is no science to dog training. They don't want science in dog training because they all consider themselves behaviorists. Let's get back to what Robert Cabral is saying.
The four quadrants.
So Skinner in the four quadrants.
Right? Punishment, again, I don't use the word punishment, I use the word correction, but punishment is the scientific term under Skinner. There's the four quadrants.
Do you see that? Do you see his eyes? He can't even look at the camera and tell the truth and lie. The man is lying to you right there. The four quadrants are based on Konrad Most, his own father of Schutzhund, the father of IGP, Konrad Most, but yet he's sitting there on camera blaming B.F. fucking Skinner. And this shit needs to stop. Okay, Robert? Tell the truth. Ivan Benevolov does the same thing. Haas Othman will do the same thing. All of these big name IGP dog trainers who shouldn't be in the behavior ring at all are blaming B.F. Skinner, knowing full well they're pushing Konrad Most. And if you read the book from Konrad Most and then listen to these IGP dog trainers, you'll know exactly what they're getting at. And not one of them is qualified to call themselves a behaviorist. Let's keep on going.
Punishment is an effective way of extinguishing a behavior.
It's not. You just blame B.F. Skinner for the quadrants of dog training. But let's take a look at what Skinner actually said about punishment. You're lying. Punishment is easy. This is a quote, a direct quote from B.F. Skinner's book about behaviorism. This is the man that Robert Cabral blames for punishment for the quadrants of dog training. Punishment is easily confused with negative reinforcement, sometimes called aversive control. The same stimuli are used, and negative reinforcement might be defined as punishment for not behaving, but punishment is designed to remove a behavior from a repertoire, whereas negative reinforcements generate behaviors. So let's get back to the fear of spiders. They don't care about the subjective, they don't care about the spider. If you're afraid of spiders, you're going to have behaviors as a result of it. You're going to go fight or flight. The spider itself is a negative reinforcement that's generating your behaviors to fight and flight. They don't care about all that. All they're going to do is focus objectively on your behaviors and try to shut them down. They don't care about the behaviors. They don't care what the definition of a behavior is. They just want to shut them down. And they're going to do that using treats and tools like e-collars and prongs and everything else. Okay? Punishing contingencies are just the reverse of reinforcing. So when Robert Cabral sits there and claims that B.F. Skinner, according to B.F. Skinner, punishment is effective at extinguishing behaviors, no, it is not. Again, punishing contingencies are just the reverse of reinforcing. It creates weakness. It creates fear. When a person spanks a child or threatens to spank him because he's misbehaved, he's presenting a negative reinforcer rather than removing one. That's your definition of punishment. It's the forced application of negative reinforcement that's removing positive reinforcement. Negative and positive reinforcement are yin and yang. You can't have one without the other. So when positive reinforcement trainers are out there screaming it's all positive, that's bullshit. There's always a possible negative for every positive, or negative outcome for every positive. There's a possible positive for every negative. Okay? He's presenting a negative reinforcer rather than removing one. So the smack on the ass is a negative reinforcer that you're introducing as forced application of negative reinforcement. That is called punishment. So when the government finds an offender or puts him in prison, he's removing a positive reinforcer or a situation in which a behavior may be positively reinforced rather than presenting a negative one. If the effect were simply reverse of the effect of reinforcement, a great deal of behavior could be easily explained. But when a behavior is punished, various stimuli generated by the behavior or the occasion are conditioned to the respondent pattern, and the punished behavior is then displaced by an incompatible behavior. You've heard those words, incompatible behaviors, trained incompatible behaviors, conditioned as escape or avoidance. Escape or avoidance is actually positive reinforcement to a dog. So when you got trainers out there telling you to train the dog for recall and do not let them escape, that's because it's positively reinforcing. If they escape once, you're going to do it again and again and again. Okay? A punished person remains inclined, and this is very important. A punished person or animal remains inclined to behave in a punishable way, but he avoids punishment by doing something else instead, possibly doing nothing more than stubbornly doing nothing. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is called learned helplessness. That is B.F. Skinner's definition of learned helplessness. Okay? So let's keep on going with the lies that Robert Cabral is telling.
right? Things that are rewarded are likely to be repeated. This is in scientific terms. And things that are punished are likely not to be repeated.
Now that's Conrad Most. That's the real quarters of dog training that Robert Cabral doesn't want you to understand. Primary inducements and secondary inducements. What is an inducement? You're trying to get your dog to do something using something. This is where food and affection comes in. Food and affection that they're selling as positive reinforcement is actually a primary inducement, and Robert Cabral doesn't want you to know that. He doesn't want you to read a book from B.F. Skinner. He doesn't want you to read a book from Conrad Most. Just listen to the experts. This is an expert in behavior that's talking right now, okay? Robert Cabral considered himself a behavioral expert for 30 years in the field, okay? Now, if somebody's declaring themselves an expert in a particular thing, like he's considered himself an expert in behavior, you would think that the dog trainer who's an expert in behavior could actually define the word, correct? But let's listen to Robert Cabral try to define the word behavior. He doesn't need to. He can't. He's stumbling. He's bumbling. He cannot define the word behavior because he doesn't need to, because he doesn't have any fucking science. In order to understand what a behavior is, you need psychology. You need science. So let's listen to Robert Cabral define the word behavior.
Okay, so this is a good question. Can you define the word behavior? Behavior is the way a dog acts, right? So when we say the dog's behavior, it's the dog's personality. The dog's overall demeanor is the behavior. So when someone is a behaviorist, they are changing the dog's behavior. In other words, taking a dog.
This is a behavioral expert with 30 years in the behavior ring. He can't even define the word behavior or word behaviorist. Keep on listening.
That might display fearful personality or behavior, and will then teach the dog the skills to be more confident so that the behavior then becomes...
This is a behavioral expert with 30 years in the behavior ring. The IGP dog trainer who's pushing Conrad Most and trying to blame Skinner. He's never read a book from Skinner. He blames Skinner for punishment, but even Skinner himself was dead set against the use of punishment. And now we got to compound that with the idea that once you understand what a behavior is, then punishment doesn't even work. Punishment is off the table. And so is dog euthanasia. Behavioral euthanasia shouldn't be happening, but yet Robert Cabral is out there pushing euthanasia like crazy. Euthanasia should not be happening once you understand what a behavior is. Every behavior has a cause. That's the subjective. It's the subjective that drives your behaviors. The objective is not the driving your behaviors. They don't want the subjective in the behavior ring, because all they're doing is focusing on shutting down behaviors through punishment. And once you understand that you got Zach George, you got all the positive reinforcement trainers out there, all the purely positive, the IGP, balanced, they're all doing the same thing. They're trying to shut down behaviors. They want to stop behaviors because they don't give a shit about the science of behaviors. That's the reality. Not one of these fuckers can actually define the word behavior. Hans Othman tried it. You can go up on my channel. At least he actually took the time to open up a fucking dictionary to read it. Okay? He could not define the word behavior, even though he beats his chest and claims to be the best of the best at behavior. These assholes are not qualified to call themselves behaviorists because they don't care about subjective. In order to understand the subjective, you need science. You need psychology. You need B.F. Skinner. You need Carl Jung. You need Sigmund Freud. They don't want the science of all this psychology in dog training because there's no money in it. Once you sit down and read Skinner and understand it, you're going to fire every dog trainer out there. And they won't make money anymore. And Robert Cabral himself will crow about creating this pet care conglomerate. The pet care conglomerate, this $100 billion industry that now contains dog trainers, dog behaviorists, vets and vet behaviorists. They're all in it for the money, and they're all killing dogs. Now we got Zach George and Lisa Radosta, the very president of the American College of Vet Behaviorists, trying to get rid of balanced training and have positive reinforcement as the only game in town. Guess what? It's going to cause a whole lot more dead dogs. What you know as positive reinforcement is actually primary inducements under Conrad Most. That's the lie. That's what they don't want you to know. That's the objective that they're trying to push on you. Once you understand the subjective, guess what?
A more confident behavior. It's a really fancy word, and I hate big words because
I hate big words.
Causes these issues like what is behavior? It's like, what is a woman? What is
behavior? If you're claiming to be an expert in behavior for 30 years, then the word behavior is a very important thing. But oh no, it ranks right up there. What is a woman? This is pure garbage. This man is lying to you for money. This is called extortion. And the entire pet care conglomerate that he's created is nothing more than an extortion ring to get money out of you. And so far, it's worth at least $100 billion. And in Robert Cabral's own words, dog trainers like him have a huge slice of that pie. That's the reality.
This, what is that? It's a simple thing. Behavior. How do you behave? That's the word stems from the root behave. How do you behave? That is your behavior. It's a real simple thing, but I understand the meaning of your question, and thank you.
How pathetic was that? You can't even define the word behavior. It's fucking pathetic. So let's go back to the Facebook post. I believe science has no place in dictating dog training because so much of the facts are often manipulated for the outcome that certain people desire. And that's exactly what Robert Cabral is doing. They're manipulating all the facts. They're lying to you to make money off you. Namely to those that pay for studies. And, oh yeah, there's a lot of people paying for studies. I have horror of the word punishment as a term for dog training because it's misused and understood. Well, guess what? Again, right here. Punishment is easily confused with negative reinforcement. Punishment attempts to remove behavior from a bloody repertoire, and that's what every dog trainer is trying to do. You're being lied to. So how does he define punishment right here? The infliction or imposition of a restriction, financial penalty, form or suffering, or other desired consequence for an offense. That's one definition of punishment, but it's not the psychology definition. Again, science doesn't belong in dog training. Psychology doesn't belong in dog training because all they want to do is focus on the objective. They don't give a shit about the subjective. Okay? That's the reason why he doesn't want science in dog training. Have a good day. And Robert, I'll be back. I'll be in contact further.